Executive presence is quite an intangible term, and it requires a lot of internal reflection. So I've highlighted, I found, summarized probably 9 aspects here that need to be considered, but I'm by no means saying that these are the only points that are part of executive presence. Here we, for example, see somebody reckons there are 16 behaviors. Some other organization or research has shown that there are 3 different aspects. So it really is a very huge topic. And then by the end of this 20 minutes, I'd hope that you'll be able to understand what the term executive presence means, what it takes to communicate with confidence, and that you have some tools at hand to help you start creating your own personal development plan. Because at the end of the day, that's what it's all about. We don't just wake up one day and we have executive presence. So why would we need executive presence? The percentage of women in leadership worldwide is still relatively low. And women often say they find it difficult to break the so-called glass ceiling. And I think one of the most important reasons why we would need executive presence is that any important decision that is being taken about us normally is taken when we're not in the room. So management will have a conference or meeting somewhere and they will decide who they want to promote or hire into a certain position. And we don't have a stake at that moment in it. So it really is what type of legacy, what type of reputation, what type of impact have you made or are you making that remains in the minds of those people that take decisions that might involve you at some stage. Although there are 250,000 plus comments about what executive presence might be, it's not an elusive quality. It is actually something that all of us can acquire if we take a slightly deeper look into ourselves and see what is it that we want to achieve and what is it that we are currently lacking. Where's the area that we should be growing? And then I looked at what is executive presence not. So, when do we know? Very straightforward, but this is not it. So it's people who rarely speak up or tend to shy away from questions, especially in meetings, interactions with others. On the other hand, people who speak too much and who dominate the conversation, certainly not executive presence. Then people who struggle to moderate their own emotions. They struggle to adjust to other people's emotions. So it's the whole issue of emotional intelligence, and I will also refer to it later on again. Then if you're prone to outbursts, if you're seen to be emotional, volatile, we never know what to expect from you, again, that is by no means executive presence. Anybody who participates in workplace bullying, not executive presence. People that show up late, that have poor time management, that are poorly organized, would fall into this category. If you don't take time to engage with your audience, so you rock up at a meeting, you say what you have to say, and you move out again without interacting, without listening to people, leaving something behind. People that fidget, ramble, overcommitted, display disconnect between verbal and non-verbal behavior, people that don't look the role, and people that fail to set the standards for integrity, ethics, and professional boundaries. So in a nutshell, those and a couple of things that link to that actually have been identified by Hewlett and by Forbes of not being part of executive presence. And then typical blunders. So you might get it right 90% of the time, but typical blunders that would really break it all in a few seconds for you include not showing up with empathy and kindness, especially at the wrong moment. If your skills and ethics are lacking, constant device checking, sexual misbehavior, being distant, living in a bubble, so being so much in your own bubble that you don't have empathy and concern for the lives and the situations of other people, being perceived as shallow or lightweight. Again, the word is perceived. You might not be like that, but you come across like that. People with an inflated ego certainly don't make the mark. Insensitive jokes and inappropriate comments. Small little things like this, they can have a major impact on how you are being perceived and how you are being regarded as a professional or as somebody with executive presence. And then when we look at what is it exactly, it does not equal performance. So your performance, your professional performance can be spot on. You can be performing at 150% level. But if your behavior doesn't match your performance, you might be a good performer, but might never climb the hierarchy in terms of business because of how you show up. So it's fundamentally about taking a deep look inside yourself and then seeing how you show up, finding your own original voice. There's no point in trying to, try to be like somebody else, try to replicate this or that person that you might admire. You might see them as role models, but you still need to find your own voice with your own qualities and your own values. Now, people that are very well known for having executive presence are people like Nelson Mandela and then Christine Lagarde. And if you just look at them, you would immediately, probably in some of the points that I mentioned now, see the qualities and the values that they display. So we all know that when we meet somebody, we form an opinion of them in the first 1 to 2 minutes. We've sussed them out, we know, and we know where to put them. Likewise, if we meet others, or if others meet us, they do the same to us, okay? So they sum us up within a minute, max, and they know it's a high flyer, it's a waste of time, it's somebody that I shouldn't bother with, or it's somebody that might be interesting. And so when we scan somebody subconsciously for their executive presence or for their presence, obviously we don't walk around scanning people for executive presence. It's one of those things that happens subconsciously in the background. But our first filter is appearance. So what does the person look like? What are they dressed like? How are they groomed? What is their appearance? The second filter is their communication skills. And then the most important one, and the one that actually carries the most weight, is their gravitas. So if you don't make the appearance filter, you're out. Okay? If you don't make the communication filter, you're out. But once you've managed to pass through those barriers or those through filters, then you can actually only show off and show up as a person with gravitas, with presence. And then there are 9 developmental steps. I'll now talk to each one of them in some more detail. The first important thing is to ask yourself, when you're wanting to develop your professional gravitas, your executive presence, your leadership style, is to ask yourself, who am I? Who am I? What do I stand for? What makes me get up in the morning? And what's my superpower? And then if you want to position yourself, if you want to start developing your own brand, it's very important that you have a purpose-driven life, that you display energy, and that ideally your purpose is linked to your role in the organization. It shouldn't be too high up. So if you're in middle management, you shouldn't be talking about your purpose as the MD. The gap is just too much. So think about projects, roles, activities where you can go an extra mile to contribute, to leave a mark. And let that be in your realm of where you can make an impact, because otherwise, the disconnect becomes too big, and again, people don't quite understand, what is she up to? Thinking that she's going to be MD? Can't see that happen, okay? And you actually break yourself down instead of setting yourself up for the next step. And then also, when you think about your own vision and your own unique value, think about the tape in your head. What are the personal messages that you're giving yourself? Something like, I'm actually not up to it, I'm afraid, I come from such a background that it might be difficult for me to take it off, to pull it off. What is the tape in your head? And interrogate if that tape in your head is actually helpful and is actually helping you to get where you want to go in terms of your own personal vision. Then one of the very important parts as well is to understand yourself, and most importantly, to understand how others view you. Now, again, you might think you come across in a certain way, and you might think people understand you easily, and they like you, and you might be very approachable. But when you start engaging with people and you try to understand how they see you, you often get a totally different picture. And many of us have been part in business, of having done a 360-degree survey, and we were quite, stunned with some of the feedback that comes back. What? Is this how people see me? How dare they? Okay. Now, that is the type of feedback that we actually do need. to learn how we show up and to moderate then how we show up. Because it is how the person across the room, across the table sees us. That's their reality. It's not what we think about us, but it's about what others think about us that make up our brand. One of the tools that you could use there is a thing called Johari's window, which looks at how do I see myself, how do others see myself, what don't I know about myself, and what do others know about myself. Sorry, what do others not know about myself. And then try and make your open window of what I know about myself and what others know about myself as big as possible. So to prevent that disconnect. Communication skills, a very, very important factor in developing your executive presence. Firstly, I think it's important to note that the majority of us are not English first language speakers. It's not our home language, but our business language is English, and we get judged by how well we use our language in business. So it is important that you learn to speak language well, that your pronunciation is well, that you're able to express yourself concisely, and that you express yourself in such a way that people understand you. So you've all been at the receiving end maybe of an email 6 lines long, and you've tried to read it twice and you still don't know what on earth is this person trying to tell me. Okay? So that's a blunder. Try, and it's very important that you, if you don't have it, go for, it's a skill that you can learn, language. So go for extra language skills courses, learn pronunciation, learn writing skills, and practice. So that if you communicate, so it's not about what you communicate, but how people receive your message. So your body language, your posture, your eye contact, your facial expression, your voice, and actually also your emotion. So we've often been in a situation where somebody tells us something and we get the feeling, how come I don't believe a word that this person tells me? So there's a disconnect between what they say and what they project. It could be in their body language, but it could also be in their voice. So be very aware, again it comes to self-awareness of the earlier slide, be very aware how you show up, because our body language and our emotions often are a much bigger part of the message that we actually give across than the words that we use. And the more we are in tune with ourselves, the more succinct and real we come across. Then also social media, online presence, very, very important. It doesn't help to have a very professional demeanor and then you post stupid things on Facebook or Instagram. It breaks your reputation second to none. And nowadays people are quite social media savvy, so they will know you, they will have sussed you out before they even meet you. And then the Bell Leadership Institute study said that the most important or desirable trait in leaders are strong work ethic, so that contributes to your executive presence, but it's not your executive presence, and then also having a good sense of humor. So there's no point in trying to be this extra serious, extra strict businesswoman. Be able to laugh at yourself. Be able to have fun with your colleagues at an appropriate level, but just always being strict and withdrawn and ever so high-nosed is not going to help you build your reputation as a very approachable executive woman. Now, people say that one of the most important roles of a leader is the ability to listen. So it's less about what you say, but it's more about, are you listening to people? When people are talking, are you making them your center of attraction? Are you really listening? And then also ask yourself, are you listening to understand, or are you listening to respond? So most of us, while somebody's talking to us, in our mind we already formulate our response, because we want to get our message across. Okay? The secret here is to try and understand the person where they are, and then meet them where they are and take the communication from there. It helps you with influence, it helps with getting your message across, because if a person doesn't feel heard or seen, you can say whatever you like, they won't get it. Your body language is quite important, so if you're talking to somebody, if you're listening to somebody, show them that you're listening. So So look at them, nod, maybe rephrase some of the things that they've said to ensure that they know you're understanding them and that you're on the same page. Another thing is we all know that when we communicate, I think it's only about 20% of words that we say that land. The rest is body language, is emotion, is all these other cues that we pick up. So again, be very aware of who you are, what you wanted to present, and then show up authentically in that way. Now we all know the word politics, organizational politics, and some of us are a little bit mindful about that concept. But at the end of the day, all organizational politics is the way we do things around here. This is the way our company ticks. And if you want to display emotional maturity and you want to display gravity at the workplace, it's important that you understand the emotional climate of an organization. It's the way we do things around here. And if you want to be part of the group, you want to be accepted, you want to influence, your better bet is to influence from within, to meet people where we are, than to be as an outsider and try and change a system within an organization. So it's important that you cultivate your network, have a look at your stakeholders. Who are your stakeholders? What are their stakes? What are your communication topics with those stakeholders? And how are you able to influence? Leaders who are not politically savvy come off as very manipulative. So it's important that you come across as trustworthy and as open-minded as possible if you want to influence an organization. If you come out as the outsider who knows everything better, who maybe is seen as slightly arrogant or slightly disconnected, it is so much more difficult to connect and to build up that credibility for yourself in an organization. So things that we are looking for are like social astuteness, authenticity, EQ, the idea, the possibility, the opportunity to sell your ideas, the ability to sell your ideas, listening to understand, being humble, very important characteristic, and being seen to be doing things for the greater good. And for example, Nelson Mandela was very good at that. He would always do things for the greater good, never for himself. Okay, and through that, he actually started developing such a persona. Learn to function effectively under stress. Desiree alluded to it just now. In a crisis, our brain actually turns down. Okay, and we go into survival mode. It's that old fight and flight thing that you might have heard about. So the higher the crisis, the more under stress we are, the lower our IQ actually becomes, interestingly. And we start trying to manage and control the thing in front of us, the survival mode, and we lose our ability for longer term thinking. So you would all be able to relate to when I say you get into a stress mode and you just think about this. And 10 minutes later, once the stress has disappeared, you think, I was actually quite silly there. I wonder how people saw me. And that's what you really want to avoid at all costs. So it's important that you have a really good work-life balance, a really good life balance, and that you learn how to manage your stress, and that you have sustainable stress management mechanism and techniques in your life. It's not a once-off. This is something that you need to have running throughout your life, because you never know when the next crisis hits you and what is at stake and how you should be showing up. So grace under fire, that is one of the really important skills if you want to show executive presence. You don't want to walk around like a chicken without a head. And I know many of us do that. And in that moment, we actually can't stop it. And we, most of the time, are not even aware of it. Very difficult to recover from those type of situations. So what you're looking for is to be calm, even-keeled, composed, the ability to show empathy, especially in situations which are tough on everybody. So don't go and sit and cry with a team. Show empathy and try to help them see a new vision, help them forward. So what you need is a solid stress management plan and personal balance. That that you are able to tap into your internal resources when the going gets tough. And one of our very, very favorite ways in which you can learn to handle this is to learn to breathe and to practice mindfulness. We breathe about 23,000 times a day. Okay? And our breath is actually, for every emotion that we have a certain type of breath. Okay, so if we are hyperventilating, it's short and shallow. Okay, we can't think. And if we are excited, it's equally, quick and light. If we are relaxed and we are at ease, our breathing is a lot deeper, and there's a lot more space, and our brain opens up and we can think. So one of the things I would really encourage everybody in this room, if you don't do anything about stress management, but if you are able to practice mindfulness and learn to control your breath, because at the end of the day, once you learn to control your breath, once you are able to practice mindfulness for 10, 15 minutes, it's basically controlling your thoughts and controlling your breath. And you do that on a daily basis. If you do get into a stressful situation, all theoretically you need to do is breathe in once or twice, ground yourself, anchor yourself in your breath, and your calmness comes back into your body. In situations like that, you are now in a meeting and you are quite stressed up about something and you need to make a point. So it's as much as taking off your glasses, breathing in once or twice, putting back your glasses and responding. And these 2-3 seconds are enough for you to, if you have a regular mindfulness practice, I must say, but then are enough for you to get your body into a calm state and to be able to show up more executive-like. So strategies there would be mindfulness, breathing exercises, and meditation. Make sure your appearance is not a distraction. Visual appearance is important, but it could also be working against you. And you see I've put the Aesthetic Center logo down here. So, the way you show up, the way you care for yourself is very important. It's dress on the one hand, it's your skin, it's your general body tone. So things that I could suggest there is be authentic and dress appropriate to your professional situation. Take good care of your physical appearance, regular exercise, good nutrition, healthy habits, and a good skincare regime. Dress for the job you want. Makeup and accessories should be relevant. Be aware of these super high heels. Ensure that what you wear you feel comfortable in, and you can do whatever is required for you to do. So if you wear high heels, don't go and walk on a building site. Those type of things. So dress appropriate to the situation. Every organization has its own culture, its own dress code, its own policies. So while it's good for you to keep your own authenticity, make sure that you dress accordingly. So it's always possible to, if you're into this or that, to have elements of that maybe as part of your accessories, but ensure that you never dress outside what is expected for you in your professional role. Just in summing up, if you want to start a development plan for yourself, I think the most important is to take a very critical look into yourself. So who am I, and what is it that I want to achieve in my life and in my career? So we're not our careers. I think that's very, very important to notice. We need good work-life balance, we need a life, and a career is part of our life. And it's important that we ensure that we define ourselves as a whole human being and not just as a career woman, because it's going to come back to bite you some way or another. And when you go out and you develop your executive presence, be aware that there are 3 filters that you will be put through subconsciously when you meet people. The first one that people will judge you on is your appearance. The second one is your language. And the third one is your presence, your groundedness, or your gravitas. Grooming and appearance being the smallest percentage, and gravitas or presence being the biggest percentage, but you need to make it through every step. Okay, so you need to make it through step 1, 2, and 3 to arrive at the gravitas. And then areas that I would encourage you to look at are these 9 points that I've outlined in the presentation. Your personal vision, your self-awareness, communication skills, your ability to listen and to interact, your professional networking, stress management, your groundedness, your professional appearance, and then your boundaries. So know your boundaries, know what is possible, and know where you need to, maybe leave a meeting, leave a party, what to say, what not to say. Okay, now we get to this one, the sky is the limit, or your mind is the limit. So I believe that our mind is the limit. We can do anything if we are able to remove our internal barriers. And all these things that I've spoken about here, they're not rocket science. They are able and open to each one of us. And we just need the courage to actually take this deep internal look and say, but where are my barriers? And where are my stumbling blocks? And what am I prepared to do about this? And what am I prepared to sacrifice on the journey to achieve, whatever the area is that I want to develop into, and the professional skills that I want to develop.